When a wealthy heiress mocked a humble mechanic, she laughed and said, "Fix my Ferrari, and you can marry my daughter." Everyone in the room burst into laughter, except the young man. No one knew his answer would silence the crowd, and reveal a truth that would change all their lives forever. The grand hall of the heiress's mansion glimmered with crystal chandeliers and laughter that echoed off the marble walls. Wealthy guests sipped their wine, gossiping and sneering at anyone beneath their circle. In the midst of this dazzling world, a humble mechanic named Daniel stood quietly, his rough hands folded in front of him, his clothes simple and stained with years of work. He had been summoned only to look at the family's prized Ferrari, a symbol of their status, now silent and broken in the courtyard. The heiress, tall and proud, with pride etched into every glance, looked down at him with a mocking smile. Her voice cut through the chatter like a blade. "If you can fix my Ferrari, I'll let you marry my daughter." The room erupted in cruel laughter, as if she had made the funniest joke of the night. Glasses clinked, whispers spread, and heads shook at the absurdity of the thought. But Daniel didn't laugh. His eyes, steady and calm, met hers without fear. He didn't bow his head in shame or snap back in anger. Instead, his voice rang clear, firm, and unshaken. "Then bring me the car." Instantly, the laughter died, and a strange silence filled the hall. The guests looked at one another in disbelief, stunned that the poor mechanic dared to take her challenge seriously. The heiress blinked, taken aback by his composure, and her smile faltered for the first time that evening. Her daughter, who had been quietly observing from the corner, felt a flicker of curiosity in her heart. No one had ever stood so calmly against her mother's arrogance before. And in that single moment, the tone of the night shifted. What began as a cruel joke had turned into the start of something no one could predict. The next morning, the courtyard of the mansion buzzed with whispers as the broken Ferrari was rolled out into the sunlight. Its once flawless red paint gleamed proudly, but beneath the surface, the engine was dead, its silence echoing like a challenge only the brave would dare to accept. Servants, guests, and curious onlookers gathered in a circle, their eyes fixed on Daniel as he approached the car. His rough hands carried no expensive tools, only the simple kit he had relied on for years in his small, humble workshop. The heiress stood nearby, her arms folded, her smirk sharper than the diamonds around her neck. "Let's see how far your confidence gets you," she mocked, her voice laced with arrogance. The crowd chuckled, expecting him to fail quickly, but Daniel did not answer. Instead, he ran his hand gently across the Ferrari's hood, as though greeting an old friend. He crouched down, listening carefully, every movement calm, deliberate, and purposeful. Hours passed, the sun dipped lower, and yet Daniel's focus never wavered. Sweat rolled down his forehead, his shirt clung to him, but his eyes shone with determination. Every turn of the wrench, every spark from his tools, carried the weight of his pride and his silent promise that he was more than what they saw. From the balcony above, the heiress's daughter leaned forward, unable to look away. Unlike the others, she noticed something different. He wasn't just fixing a car, he was breathing life back into it, treating it with respect rather than as a symbol of wealth. Slowly, doubt began to creep into the crowd. Their mocking laughter quieted, replaced by a tense silence, as if the very air was holding its breath. For the first time, the heiress's proud smile wavered, while her daughter's eyes filled with something she had never felt before: hope. A heavy silence blanketed the courtyard as Daniel lowered the hood of the Ferrari. For a moment, it felt as if the world itself had paused to watch him. He slid into the driver's seat, his worn hands gripping the steering wheel with the calmness of a man who believed in his own craft. The heiress smirked, whispering to her friends, "This will be his final embarrassment." But her daughter leaned forward, unable to look away. Daniel turned the key, and at first, there was nothing, only the shallow click of hesitation. The crowd chuckled cruelly, but before the laughter could swell, a deep, powerful growl erupted from the engine. The Ferrari roared to life, loud and fierce, echoing against the mansion walls like a lion announcing its triumph. Gasps broke out, followed by stunned silence. People clutched their mouths in disbelief. Some even stepped back as if they had witnessed a miracle. Daniel's calm eyes scanned the courtyard, his expression unshaken, but the fire in his gaze said everything. The heiress's confident mask shattered in an instant, her eyes wide as her pride slipped through her fingers. The daughter, however, felt her heart race with awe and something she couldn't quite name, admiration. It wasn't just that Daniel had fixed the car, it was how he did it, with patience, dignity, and unshakable belief in himself despite the ridicule. In that moment, the difference between wealth and worth became painfully clear to everyone watching. Daniel stepped out of the car, wiping his greasy hands on a rag, his silence speaking louder than 1,000 words. The Ferrari purred steadily behind him, a symbol of his quiet genius. And as the crowd shifted uneasily, all eyes turned toward the heiress, waiting to see if she would keep the promise she had made so boldly hours before. The courtyard buzzed with disbelief, the Ferrari's steady hum filling the silence left behind. All eyes now burned into the heiress, who stood frozen, her lips trembling as her pride wrestled with her words. Just hours ago, she had mocked Daniel, laughing as she threw her challenge like an insult. "Fix it, and you can marry my daughter." She never thought he would succeed. Now, her confidence collapsed under the weight of her own arrogance. Murmurs spread through the crowd, some mocking her, others urging her to honor her word. Her daughter, however, stared at Daniel with admiration and conflict swirling in her chest. She had seen many men parade their wealth and titles before her, but none had shown Daniel's humility, strength, or quiet dignity. The heiress's pride screamed to dismiss him, to twist her words, but the audience was relentless. "Keep your promise!" one man shouted. "You can't take it back now!" added another. Daniel stood calm, rag still in hand, as if the storm around him could not touch his steady resolve. He had not come for glory, nor to win a bride through arrogance, he only came to prove himself, and in doing so, he had revealed the emptiness of their mockery. The heiress clenched her fists, her face pale beneath the weight of expectation. Breaking her word would mean disgrace, not only for her but for her entire name. Her daughter stepped forward, her voice gentle yet firm. "Mother, a promise is a promise. You always told me true honor is keeping one's word." The crowd fell into stunned silence at her bravery. Daniel's eyes met hers for the first time, and in that fleeting moment, a connection sparked, an understanding that went deeper than words. The heiress, cornered by truth and honor, realized there was no escape from the vow she had so carelessly made. The air grew heavy as the heiress finally lowered her gaze, her pride shattered by the weight of her own promise. For the first time, she looked at Daniel not as a poor mechanic, but as a man whose integrity and brilliance outshone every fortune in the room. Her lips trembled as she whispered, "You have one." The crowd erupted, some clapping, others gasping, but Daniel raised his hand, silencing them with a calm authority that surprised everyone. He stepped forward, his eyes not on the heiress but on her daughter. "I never came here to claim anyone as a prize," he said firmly, his voice steady. "I fixed the car because it was broken, and because I wanted to prove that worth is not measured by money or status, but by skill, honesty, and heart." His words pierced deeper than the sight of the repaired Ferrari, leaving the crowd stunned in admiration. The heiress's daughter, her eyes shimmering with tears, felt her heart swell. For the first time, she saw a man who wasn't blinded by wealth or tempted by privilege, but someone whose soul stood taller than any empire. She stepped closer, her voice trembling but full of resolve. "Perhaps love is not found in riches," she whispered, "but in truth." The heiress watched in silence as her daughter and Daniel stood together, not bound by a careless promise, but by a respect born from resilience and dignity. The Ferrari gleamed behind them, no longer just a car but a symbol of how broken things, whether engines or hearts, could be mended with patience and courage. The crowd's applause swelled like thunder, but Daniel only smiled humbly. For him, the true victory was not in wealth or marriage, it was in proving that character, not status, defines greatness.